All right, everyone, welcome back. So last week, we really laid the groundwork, didn't we? We started this big shift away from thinking of the body as just a machine that the mind drives. Instead, we started seeing it as an active, meaning-making subject in its own right. Today, we're going to build directly on that. We're diving into one of the coolest consequences of that idea, skillful coping. We're going to explore how the body has its own kind of practical intelligence, a practignosia, that works beautifully without the mind having to drop any blueprints.
So remember, the big move we made was away from the classic, I think, therefore I am. We've put that on the shelf for a bit. Following Merleau-Ponty, we're now focusing on the idea that our most fundamental connection to the world is through a bodily I can. It's an understanding that's all about our potential for action. So the body is no longer this machine being piloted by a ghost. It's our direct, lived vehicle for being in the world.
Okay, so let's try to bring this down to earth. Think about something you've probably already done today. Picking up a coffee mug. Seems about as simple as it gets, right? On the surface, it's instantaneous, totally effortless. But when you start to unpack that one little action, you find two completely different stories about how we even exist in the world.
And here are those two stories, side by side. The old-school intellectualist view says your brain is like a little computer. First, it forms a mental picture of the mug. Then it calculates its distance, its shape, its weight. And finally, it sends a command down the wire to your muscles. But does that actually feel like what's happening? Phenomenology says no way. There's no calculation, there's no three-step process, it's far more elegant. Your body is just ready for the mug. Your hand already anticipates its form before you even think about it.
So to really get a handle on this bodily genius, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with this idea of the body's practical know-how. Then we'll look at how that extends to things like habits and using tools, how we actually come to inhabit new worlds. After that, we're going to tackle a really tricky paradox, how action can have a purpose without a mental plan. And we'll finish up by flipping things around and looking at how the world actually calls action out of us.
So let's jump right in. The body's practical genius. This gets to the heart of what Merleau-Ponty means by skillful coping. It's this incredible, non-representational way our bodies have of dealing with the world, a kind of know-how that happens long before conscious thought ever gets involved. And of course, this is all built on last week's topic, motor intentionality. Remember, we're not talking about the mind's intention to think about something. We're talking about the body's practical intention to do something, like grasping. It's that automatic, unthinking way our bodies orient themselves, the way your hand just knows how to find the perfect grip.
And skillful coping is just that motor intentionality in action. It's a direct bodily understanding. But here's what's so key. It's not just a knee-jerk reflex, because it's smart, it's responsive to the world. At the same time, it's not a cognitive thought. It's a third thing, a kind of bodily readiness for whatever the world presents. You know, Merleau-Ponty himself just nails it with this quote. To move one's body is to aim at things through it. Just think about that for a second. We don't aim our body like a tool. We aim through it. Our movement is a response to a call from the world, a call that the body hears directly, with no need for a mental translation.
Okay, so if that's how we deal with something as simple as a mug, what happens when things get more complex, when we learn a skill or use a tool? Well, that brings us to our next idea, how our bodies learn to inhabit whole new expressive worlds.
When we hear the word habit, we tend to think of some mindless, mechanical repetition. But for Merleau-Ponty, a habit is something much deeper. It doesn't live in the mind, and it's not just a twitch in the body. It lives in the body as our mediator to a world. It's how our body learns a new language for interacting with our environment.
I mean, think about an expert organist. They can sit down at a gigantic, unfamiliar instrument and almost immediately start to play. They aren't consciously memorizing where every single pedal and switch is. No, their body gets the feel of the instrument. Merleau-Ponty has this beautiful phrase. They settle into it as one settles into a house. It becomes a new expressive space for them.
Or take the incredible example of a blind person's cane. When they first start using it, it's just an object, a tool. But after a while, something magical happens. It stops being a separate thing. It gets incorporated into their very sense of touch, becoming a new kind of bodily antenna that lets them perceive the world at a distance. It's now part of their body.
And what about a dancer? A truly gifted dancer isn't just mentally checking off a list of choreographed moves. No, their body is thinking in motion.
It discovers what comes next while it's moving. It's guided by this corporeal logic, this powerful felt sense that each movement had to follow the last one. It just feels necessary without any need for abstract thought.
Okay, this next part, this can be a bit of a mind-bender. I know it's a point of frustration for a lot of people when they first encounter these ideas. It's a paradox that sits right at the heart of skillful action.
So let's just state the paradox as plainly as we can. Our actions are obviously purposive. They're goal-oriented. I mean, we want to pick up the mug, we want to play the song, but, and here's the really counterintuitive part, the claim is that we can do all of that without consciously holding a picture of the goal in our minds.
So how on earth is this possible? Well, the trick is to stop thinking of the goal as a mental blueprint. Instead, think of it as a kind of tension in the body. Right now, there's a kind of disequilibrium between me and that ungrasped mug. The action of reaching isn't about following instructions. It's simply my body trying to resolve that tension, to find a state of balance. My hand tends toward an optimal grip because that is the state of lowest tension, of equilibrium. The action is just guided by the feeling of that tension going down.
Now, for a final piece of the puzzle today, let's flip the whole thing on its head. We've been talking a lot about the body acting on the world, but Merleau-Ponty is very clear. This is a two-way street. It's a dialogue, a dialectic, between us and our environment.
And this is the crucial insight. We're not just imposing our will on a passive neutral world, it's actually the other way around too. The world actively solicits action from us. The handle of that mug invites my hand to grasp it. A staircase invites me to climb. The world isn't just a pile of neutral objects. It's a field of invitations, or solicitations, that are constantly calling out to our bodies.
Merleau-Ponty says our intentions polarize the world. Think about it. If you suddenly decide you need to mail a letter, the entire world reorients itself around that project. Mailboxes you never noticed before suddenly pop out of the background, practically glowing. They become solicitations for action. So in this sense, we don't need a map in our head because the world itself becomes the map, already structured with meaning by what our bodies intend to do.
And I want to leave you with this final question to take with you. We spend so much of our lives up in our heads, trying to think our way through everything. But if Merleau-Ponty is right, if your body already has this deep practical wisdom, this practognosia, what might happen if you started to really listen to it? What is your body already telling you about the world that your thinking mind might be drowning out?